Now on the line with us is Joe Trippi, the Democratic strategist, the host of the Trippi Show podcast. Levercommunications.com is the website apparently for that, and you can tweet him at Joe Trippi. Joe, do I have your contact information right here?
Yeah, it's That Trippi Show is the name of the podcast. But thanks, Tom. It's great to be with you, man. It's been too long.
Yeah, wow. Hey, I remember back in 2003 when you were running the Dean campaign, and I think it was the first time I met you. And then in the middle of it, you had like a kidney attack or something. It was terrible.
Yeah.
I remember that so vividly. But it was, you just struck me as such a thoughtful, knowledgeable guy. You always have. And I've in any case.
I've been a fan of yours the whole time, too, seriously. So,
it's
back to good times.
It's good talking to you again. And the reason I wanted to talk to you on this particular occasion at this particular moment is because there's a lot of despair traveling around in Democratic circles, particularly after, we had two turncoat Democratic senators shoot down voting rights reform. And you've been pushing back on this, and I think quite effectively, and making some really brilliant points. And I wanted to solicit your help in sharing those. So what is giving you optimism right now for 2022?
I think there's a whole lot going on. It's getting, sort of missed in all the doom and gloom reporting that's happening out there. One of the first things is, look, a year ago, as I started looking at 2022 and looking at redistricting, it was pretty clear that Republicans were going to be able to draw 10 more safe Republican seats after this, in this redistricting that's going on right now. And a lot of us right then, knowing that, it's always tough in the midterm anyway, but then when you start off 10 seats down just because they redrew the lines, that was pretty, I was pretty pessimistic. But now as you see state after state and the lines becoming clearer, and some courts getting involved in Ohio and other places, it's not coming true at all. In fact, it now looks like of the new districts, we're likely to have 4 to 6 more congressional districts that Joe Biden won in 2020. We'll have those in 2022 than we had in 2020 because two reasons, frankly. The Republicans were so good at drawing the lines in 2010 when they had control of these legislatures.
This is their red map strategy, right? Yeah, they can't, right, and they can't make it any redder where it's red. So anyway, we're now going to have, I think, 4 to 6 more congressional seats that are competitive and likely to be won by Democrats than the 10 that we were sure to lose when redistricting was going on when we first looked at it. The second thing is look at who they're nominating. They are, I think, going to have a year like 2010 where they back then they nominated some lunatics. Some of you remember the witch in Delaware, the Nevada candidate, Sharon Engel, I think. There are 3 or 4 candidates that they nominated who said such off-the-wall things that it took their winning. They were supposed to win the Senate majority that year. Oh yeah, there was Roy Moore and Ted Aiken and.
And now this year you got Herschel Walker, you got Dr. Oz, Herschel Walker down in Georgia, Dr. Oz up in Pennsylvania. They're doing the same thing, and it's actually this time happening even in darker ways in congressional races because their candidates are really trying to out-Trump the other candidate, and I think it's going to be a big problem for them, particularly with there are voters that when they look at the authoritarian wing of the Republican Party taking over and what's being done, they're ready to leave if that's the kind of candidate that the Republicans put up, and they're putting plenty of them up. So you've got redistricting is working not against us, but potentially in our favor. 2, they're helping by nominating lunatics or loons. 3, when you look at even the fights that we're having out there on the progressive side, Democratic side, they're not. There's
there may be a race in Pennsylvania, for instance, Fetterman and others, and Connor Lamb, but it's not. There's a real sense, I think, that people are going to unify behind whoever wins our primaries. Not true in theirs. If a Trump candidate, a rhino, somehow beats a Trump candidate, the Trump folks will stay home, and vice versa, or be discouraged. So I think that's the third factor. And also, I think, look, there's a lot of good things that Democrats have gotten done despite the Republicans obstructing. And that we're kind of at the low point of the approval. Everybody's mad at everybody right now because of COVID or their kids in schools. They're angry. When they're angry, that's taken out on the president's approval numbers. I think that anger is going to subside as COVID and the economy and the jobs growth continues in the right direction as we get closer to November.
Yeah, my analysis of Biden's falling poll numbers is as follows, and I'd love to do a reality check with you on this, Joe Trippi. If a pollster were to call me right now and say, are you happier now with Joe Biden than when he was first elected, I would probably say no. But the reason would be because I think that he pissed away, frankly, a good chunk of the year that should have been focused on voting rights, which is foundational to everything else. I realize he had emergency, real economic crises. And then the Build Back Better fiasco. I mean, they should have seen Sinema and Manchin coming. These two people have been saying this for a full year. True. And Lyndon Johnson would not have allowed this to happen. And I think that many Democrats want a guy in the White House who's going to take names and kick ass, not somebody who's going to try to play Harry Reid. But that doesn't mean I don't love Joe Biden. And I really admire the fact that this guy has gone from being kind of a middle-of-the-road corporate Democrat to being, right in tune with Howard Dean in 2004, or for that matter, I mean, he's got Bernie Sanders running, the budget committee. So that doesn't mean I wouldn't vote for him. It doesn't mean I wouldn't vote for Democrats, but I would show up as not so good.
Yeah, you're right. That's what I think is going on. There's a bunch of disappointment for where we are, but also there's a bunch of disappointment, I think, with people about, people thought we would be out of COVID by now. Well, we're not. Right. That's not the president's fault or Democrats' fault. But it still weighs when you ask, hey, how do you feel about how the country's going? People are going to say not very good.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's going to show up in his numbers. But I don't believe that those numbers are going anywhere but up from here.
And they're probably not going to translate into electoral losses. That was my point.
Yeah. I agree.
The voters are still with him. So, Joe, forgive the interruption, but I'm looking at the clock here, and we're going to hit a hard break in a couple of minutes. There is a meme floating around in Republican circles. The kind of cynical Republican circles that is kind of halfway between the Liz Cheneys and the Kevin McCarthy's, which is saying Republican Party should continue to embrace Trump through the 2022 election cycle because he does motivate the base. He will get people out to vote, and midterm elections, if nothing else, are base elections. But after after November, by December of this year, the entire Republican Party should desert him, and probably by that point in time, it will become obvious that the guy is a career criminal, and he will lose what he has left of his political potency, which completely changes the Republican picture going toward 2024. I'm curious your thoughts on that analysis and how that might play out.
I think that's like fantasy land, in my view. I think that there is no way that a House majority would do anything but certify Donald Trump in 2024 if they win that majority. Look at what they did with the 139 in their caucus. It was a majority of that caucus. If Jim Jordan had been Speaker that day with the majority, they would not have certified
Joe Biden. They would have certified the loser. They will do it again. This is not a fight, and I've said this repeatedly, this is no longer a fight between two parties. One party doesn't exist as a pro-democracy party anymore. This is a fight between a pro-democracy coalition that has to embrace people across ideology and party lines. I mean, we want former Republicans, independents, Democrats. If you're for stopping this authoritarian movement.
Right, it's democracy versus no democracy.
On the ballot. Right.
But if on the Republican side, you know, I guess my thinking on this, and this is not, by the way, my position. I mean, I've seen several headlines just over the weekend talking about, you know, Republicans talking about this. Use Trump and then dump him. Is that I don't think that'll work. I think that's the policy that they're following, actually. But I think it's going to kill the party.
Well, I think the party's dead. I really believe that, and I think that they have to look. This is one of the things I've done is created with other folks, with other former Republicans in the Lincoln Project and other places, something called the Union. And you join theunion.us is where you can go to read more about it. But it's about calling on everybody to choose sides, to join the union, to protect, preserve our union, our republic, and our democracy. And if you don't want to be in that fight, then you're on the other side. And I think that's where the Republican Party is right now. There is no. You're down to maybe two people, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, and even they